Okay, it is 7:02. Yeah, let's call the meeting to order. First point on the agenda is questions or comments from the floor. Do you have any?
No.
Okay, then we'll move to the next point on the agenda, which is a presentation about school engagement. Take it away, engagement.
All right, good evening, everybody. As Dr. Fitzgerald has been adamant about since we started here, we always lead with our mission, vision, and values. And down in the values part, engagement is listed there. But, creativity, inquiry, perseverance, I know these are things that we're trying to teach our students. But I can't echo enough the panel that we have presented here. I know Mr. Shaw, Mr. Horn are virtual right now, but Ms. Goldman, the first grade team, these people, this isn't words on paper. These people live these values. I can't say enough about how much hard work, flexibility, creativity, passion, dedication really has gone into, March 16th of 2020 to now. And I know you know that, but I felt that I had to recognize that before we started on the presentation tonight. Essentially, Dr. Fitzgerald approached the three principles about presenting tonight on engagement and what it looks like right now, especially under the COVID pandemic. And we thought that we kind of had to lead into it with where we were. And I apologize, I'm really not going to read much from the slides until I get to some data points later about the middle school. I'm really just going to kind of talk about the things that come up. Last spring, we went home on March 13th, and we never came back. And, on March 16th, we found out we were going to be out for 2 weeks. And it was like kind of the constant tale of 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. And while it gave us that sense of hope that we would be back, it also, I think, in some ways handcuffed us, because I think we had that artificial hope that in 2 more weeks we'd be back. So, what we're doing, the kind of putting the finger in the dam, so to speak, maybe kept us from really doing what we did this year, and really engaging these students in a meaningful, deep way, in a hard learning environment. So I just want to list a couple of things. We were not at one-to-one last spring. We were limited. We were basically able to offer 1 device per household. Some of our households have 4 or 5 students in it. So it was a less than perfect solution. To our credit, we had kind of, the Board of Education had supported that vision of digital equity a couple of years ago, and we had pre-ordered 75 mobile hotspots. So we were ahead of the curve on that. We were able to give internet to students who didn't have internet to help bridge that gap. But, due to some of those limited resources, a fully remote schedule like we saw this year, 7 to 12, really, K-12, when we talk about fully remote students, it just wasn't possible in terms of us providing those things. Delivery of instruction was mainly done through recordings, pockets of live instruction, and some independent work. Assignments were given in a variety of different ways, both synchronous and asynchronously, and using Google Classroom. And we also took advantage of the bus runs. I mean, the tireless loading of buses multiple times a week to deliver both food, but also supplies. Every bus was equipped with paper, with pencils, with the textbooks for the kids on those runs. When Miss D'Ambrosio did the One Book, One School, we delivered those books out to people last year. So I just wanted to start with that because, that's where all of this came from. And then we wanted to kind of shift and talk about where we were in the fall now with engagement and what we kind of transitioned to currently as it relates to our K-12 engagement.
So in elementary, specifically in grades 1 through 5, we have those smaller pods of students. So we knew that we had to create classrooms where there were 12 students or less in each classroom. And the schedule that was built really allowed us to have that 5 or 4 classrooms where students were 12 or less in each classroom. And the teachers rotate throughout the classrooms during the day. So this is just like a sample schedule for first grade, and they'll talk a little bit more about that. But each teacher was assigned basically a subject, just like you would see in a high school or middle school, and they rotate within those classrooms and teach those kids those subject areas. So it really allows them to engage the students specifically in that one subject and plan for that one subject. It also gives the kids an opportunity to see different faces throughout the day because teachers have different teaching styles. So that's one big part of the elementary engagement piece is the schedule. And another piece is the remote students. So rather than having the remote students being in one classroom all day long with one teacher, they are assigned to one of those pods basically. And so the teachers only see them one time during the day as they rotate through those classrooms. So they're not constantly juggling through the remote students and the in-person students. So it gives them an opportunity to get the full schedule, but it's only in that one pod in each grade level.
Do they have any opportunity with remote students to have one-on-one with the teachers?
Yeah, so the teachers can do one-on-one with the students when they're on the screen. They can have certain students log off and then have one student on. They've also been having students come back on those remote days to have that one-on-one experience. So they've come to East Hill, and teachers have worked with those students. We've also had students come down, like if we have to give them a test one-on-one, they come to the school for testing. So they are able to do like one-on-one or groups. We also have hours on the remote days where students can call in to the teachers and have that direct instruction or review with a teacher.
We included grade 6 on the K-5 presentation slide just because 6th grade kind of had a little bit of both schedules. We prioritized getting K-6 back on a daily basis. So since the beginning of the year, 6th grade has been here daily. They've been grouped in 4 cohorts. We essentially picked the 4 most flexible classrooms in the 6th grade, and those students stay as a cohort all day. Essentially, the teachers rotate through with a couple exceptions. They do get to leave to go out for physical education, especially when the weather is outside. We've taken advantage, the weather is nice outside. We've taken advantage of that nice weather, and we've gotten outside as much as possible. And then, they are able to go out just to grab their lunch, but they do eat out of those same spaces. So, we went out and purchased essentially bins, like 13-gallon bins for every student to put behind their desk, because some of the desks don't have the traditional storage area, and that's their kind of pocket that they learn from. There are a couple times that students who might receive an academic support or a resource room or something like that they do leave that classroom. They go into another classroom. When that cohort leaves, we wipe down the tables and we get ready in case somebody else has to go in there at another time. So the K-6 model is similar. We have 4 cohorts. The teachers rotate through rooms. We have fully remote students spread across all of the cohorts. I wasn't able to build a schedule where Alicia in K through 5 has one homeroom that all the remote students are part of. In the 6th grade schedule, there have been remote students sprinkled through basically all 4 of the cohorts. So all of that instruction since the beginning of the year has been synchronous. So we might have 4 or 5 students at home with 11 students in class, and they're receiving that same instruction, though the instruction during activities at times might be slightly different. You might tell the students at home, the teacher might say, okay, you're going to work on this for the next 15 minutes, and then you're going to come back on, and we're going to go over it together. But it has been fully synchronous since the beginning of the year.
So some of the other strategies that we've used at East Hill, basically I listed a bunch, and then these are the outcomes that we've seen. So the departmentalization is definitely engaged students. We've had those monthly themed weeks where we did, let's do a Halloween week, we did a holiday week. So we do try to incorporate that in the calendar just for something fun and positive for the kids to look forward to. We've definitely been increasing positive referrals. We send out those attendance letters every time we see that students are meeting those thresholds. We have grade level meetings. Teachers, especially this last superintendent conference day, they really looked at the math curriculum and paced out the rest of the school year to make sure that the priority standards were definitely being touched upon before the end of the school year. We developed action plans. We have PPS meetings. I try my best to post as much as possible on social media. We use the school website. We have those remote days, so we use that for extra help for students in elementary. iReady, with this schedule, we've been giving iReady daily instruction every day, K through 5. We had anti-cyberbullying. We put together a unit because we noticed social media in 4th and 5th grade was becoming an issue. So we did a unit on that. Mrs. Nair is teaching her social emotional learning during library. So every student, K through 5, is getting a piece of social emotional at least once a week. We did acts of service for the community. We did Valentine's for the different nursing homes across the area, whether they were remote or in-person students. We did letters to veterans. One Book, One School was another piece that really engaged students and had the community involved in that. The televisions that we now have in our school with pictures and our goals that all the kids enjoy and they look at, and anybody coming into the building can see our goals right as they enter the building. And then the teachers told me I should add this because I had teachers, I asked their opinion, and they said, I like to do a lot of walkthroughs through the building, but I don't just like pop in and say hi. I like to go in and ask the kids questions about like what's going on in the day. And they told me that the kids really enjoy seeing me coming in and talking to them and interacting with them. So in turn, we've seen a reduction in discipline referrals. Last year at the same time, we had 222 discipline referrals. Now we're down to 132. Positive referrals went from 76 last year to 345. Our iReady diagnostic results in reading and math, they really stayed about the same total at or above grade level from where they were last year to this year. So that's, I think, pretty good given the fact that we missed, we had them remote for a good period of time, and they're actually where they were at the same point last year. So I think the strategies that we're using this year and some of the things that we're doing, we're going to continue for years next year and the year after. So.
One other question.
Sure.
One of the things there's a lot of articles about in the media is about mental health of students in the coronavirus period. And are we seeing any kind of increase in mental health issues with kids?
I mean, at the elementary, I don't honestly, there is, but I think that Michelle doing the library and really talking about different skills in the social emotional piece and the kids getting that every week, it's really helped with it. Because she talks about strategies with the kids and coping and, going to an adult for help. So she's really been a force in the library, and that's actually been very beneficial for the elementary school. And we do meet, PPS team meets weekly, so if we have kids on the radar, whether they're kindergarten all the way up, we talk about them.
Just to piggyback that too, our counselor that we have from the Family Counseling Center 3 days.
The
counselor that we have from the Family Counseling Center that we've hired for 3 days a week is also going in and doing very targeted lessons with classrooms. And she's pulling students that might show a bit more disengagement in to do some more one-on-one work, and that's been very effective. I will say though, in terms of mental health needs and an increase, we are seeing a spike at the secondary level of students. The county has been offering more resources. In fact, our mobile crisis, they are starting a new program in which they are doing more of, I guess it'd be like case management, so they're opening up some opportunities for each district. So we have been relying on a lot of those resources in order to help manage some of the issues that our students are showing.
Are students taking advantage of that when it's
Yes.
available?
One of, with the PPS staff's weekly check-ins, I think one of the, I guess, nice things that we've seen, or trends that we've seen, the students who traditionally haven't, been reaching out to PPS for a need or for a concern, I think we definitely see a much broader swath of students who traditionally haven't, to reach out, to check in and say, I'm frustrated with this, or I need help with this, or I'd like someone just to reach out to me about this. I think especially at the 7-12 level, with the students being in that once in every 4-day rotation for 2/3 of the year, I think that added a lot of stress. I really do. One of the things that this really highlighted is, a couple weeks into it last spring, a couple students at the middle school level who I would classify as, at-risk students who traditionally would make comments like, I hate being here, were the ones who were reaching out saying how much they missed being here. And that was really interesting, and some of them have really done well in the hybrid model and moving back to a little bit more frequent being in school in terms of 2 of the 4 days. There have been a couple pockets of silver lining with students who are reaching out or maybe showing that attachment to the school a little bit differently now because of this.
The mental health issues is a combination of just the isolation, not seeing their friends. Even the kids who come in don't see all their friends. They're socially distanced in the cafeteria so that they feel lonely, they feel disconnected at home. They're struggling to keep up with the online learning. We ask the kids to adjust to an entire new way of learning for a year, and it's difficult. Chris mentioned the weekly check-ins, and Miss Rose and Miss Hodge follow up with the kids. I follow up with the kids, and that they really want to open up. When we have a kid in the office and you say, hey, what's going on? And it just opens the floodgate, so it's good. And I'm seeing an increased role, just, as I have less discipline in the building, I have a lot more kids just sitting and just pouring their heart out to me, and so, as well as guidance. We've also started restorative circles at the high school, where we have some, we've formed a group of kids who expressed interest, and the kids so far are loving it. They're loving the idea to sit with their peers, talk about what's going on. It's very cathartic, makes them feel like they're not an island, it makes them feel connected to a group of peers. So it's been terrific, and we're hoping that more kids will take advantage of it. We've sent emails, but it's one of those things where I'm finding more success. The kids won't speak up, but when I know, anytime I talk to a kid who's, I could tell feeling a little lost, I'll recommend, hey, we have this group going, you want to come and join? And almost always like, oh yeah, that sounds great. So it's one of those things. Right now we have 2 groups of 5, and I'm hoping to expand that with even more groups as time goes on and it picks up a little steam, because the kids really need the social and emotional support right now.
So 7-12 applies if you just kind of want to give an overview of what our model looks like. So the 7-12 model, essentially, we had to make the K-6 model work, especially early on, as we thought we needed 5 cohorts at every grade level. And we had to move the 7th and 8th grade up here. And Mr. Petito and I, with Dr. Fitzgerald and Ms. Schwabrow, we basically built a 4-day rotational schedule where kids were assigned a group day, and that was the day you came in. And you essentially had 1 in-person day, you had 1 assignment day, and then you had 2 fully remote days, where all of the middle school was remote for 2 days, or all of the high school was remote for 2 days. And then also in that, you had students who were fully remote. So it definitely was a juggling act, for lack of a better term, especially on the teachers' end. I have teachers, I also had to go from a 4-day rotation to an 8-day rotation to make the schedule work, because 6th grade was still down there and 8th grade was up here. So I have, someone like Kat Stuttle, who's teaching a high school class, 2 middle school grade, or 3 middle school grade levels, was working in 2 buildings across 3 schedules and making multiple trips a day to make it all work. The flexibility and dedication of the staff, I mean, it's not in question, but this showed just how willing they were to go the extra mile to make it work in an unprecedented time.
So once we were able to move the middle school into the high school, we were able to, instead of having 4 groups, we said, we had 2 middle school groups, 2 high school groups. So now all the middle school kids are up back in the middle school, so now we can have still just kept the same 4-day rotation, but everyone got to come to school double. So you come in for 2 days in a row, and then you're remote for 2 days in a row. And so that was great, and everyone was happy to be back more. They wish they could come back 5 days in a row. But another big shift in this time, and this is really what, I give the teachers a lot of credit, just keep switching models. So before, you had the assignment day, you had the remote days, you had the in-person day. Now it's completely, you're just teaching everyone every day. So you have the groups in front of you and the groups remote, and those groups alternate. And then, like Chris said, we have people who are fully remote. And so the model is, I'm just teaching a lesson. I'm combining a hybrid. I'm combining the remote students, the distance learning piece, with the in-person students. And we'll let the teachers talk about what they're doing in the classroom, but it really is, it couldn't have been easy. I think about when I was teaching, if I had to do that, I think I would have been a little lost. I really give the teachers all the credit in the world for being able to constantly switch back and forth between the models. So in addition to that, to kind of try to help the teachers have time to do all their lesson planning and everything, and give the students some time to catch up on all the work and get used to it, we've implemented these full remote days. So everyone's remote, so there's no classes. Students check in the morning just to say hello. And then teachers have office hours where they're available to meet with kids. And so we've been bringing kids in as a chance of we basically bring in kids who are struggling, and as an opportunity, just as work days. We found that if they're home, and kids have expressed this, if they're home, they're just not going to be focused. They'll play video games, especially without the structure of their classes. They'll just do other things. So bring them here, we put them in the cafeteria, and we just assign them work, and there's aides around, and teachers around, so everyone's here to help the kids. So we'll discuss the results of that in a few, I guess I'll let Chris start with middle school results, and I'll talk about the high school results.
Yeah, essentially the remote days became an opportunity for re-engagement of students. We targeted, at first, the first couple of remote days, we tried to prioritize 8 students per grade level that were failing multiple classes. And we saw great success. We ended up actually with 26 in the middle school instead of 24. We added a couple. But we saw, on average, about 88% of students attending that were invited. We called families directly, explained what the days were going to be used for, explained the layout. We were actually able to bring back some fully remote students on those days, because some families felt a little more comfortable having their student here in a classroom with 3 or 4 other students and 1 adult for a day to help them out, as opposed to them coming back all day, every day, with 15 students in that classroom. So we were able to capture some fully remote students that needed that structured support. Those students were essentially assigned originally in the middle school. We worked out of the East Hill cafeteria and the East Hill grade room. And we had pods of students, about 3 to 4 students were assigned with a teacher aide from mostly down from East Hill. And they worked all together. And students and teachers' aides were provided with assignment sheets that were prioritized by the subject that students were struggling in, but also prioritized in terms of these are the assignments we need to focus on during this time. And students, we saw a lot of excellent success with this. Bear with me 1 second, I apologize. Didn't have a presentation in mind. 73% of the students who came in were failing no courses at the 25-week mark. So we started this at the 20-week mark. So 73%, 19 to 26, were failing less or no courses 5 weeks later. So it made a big improvement. Only 2 of the 26 were failing more courses. And 5 were failing the same number of courses at the 25-week mark. So that's 73%. That made a difference. And I'll give you a couple hard examples in a second. Moving forward, we did change it. We saw that there was success here. And at the recommendation of some teachers, I think we had great intentions of putting them in 2 common spaces and allowing the teachers to go over. But we also made it very inconvenient because the 6th grade classrooms versus the great room in East Hill is basically as far away in the facility as you can get. So to make 10 trips over there, it took up half of your day. So the 6th grade team asked, hey, can we bring them back over to the middle school? And we can still cohort them in small groups, 4 to 5 students in a room, but now they'd be a classroom away. So it would allow for more frequent contact. So we shifted that, and we also increased the number. We went to 10 students per grade level. So we brought back 30 students. It actually ended up being about 32 students because certain teachers reached out and asked students if they wanted to come in and basically work with the teacher for half the day or part of the day. So the teachers have really bought into this, and we've seen some really deep student buy-in as well. I just want to give you a couple snapshots of the success and the struggle of this event. So 2 students in 6th grade, at the 20-week mark, the first one failing 4, remediated 2. That means in those first couple remote days, they were able to turn those 4 failing classes into 2 because they were able to remediate work from that second quarter. At the 25-week mark, so 5 weeks later, they're not failing anything right now. So they've not only remediated 2 classes from the second quarter, but now they're not failing anything in the third quarter. And then the next student was failing 5 in 6th grade, remediated 3, but now is failing 4 again. So we saw some remediation success, but we didn't see that long-term success into the 25-week mark. And then same thing with 7th grade, 5 to 3, 3 carried over at 25 weeks. This student absolutely crushed it. He was at 7 failures, basically every class he was taking, he was failing. He was able to turn 2 of those around, and at the 25-week mark, he's not failing a thing. He bought into it. He started to really, for whatever reason, that small cohort allowed him in his mindset to start talking to teachers when he had a question now, or he missed an assignment and needed to catch up. So he's doing a great job. I'm in 8th grade. I apologize, I got cut off. We have 4, 0, and 5. So this is kind of the opposite of where we want to go. That student was failing 4. The remote remediation didn't work. They didn't get any of those grades to pass it. And at the 25-week mark, they're failing 5. And then student AB, 3, 2, and 1. So was failing 3, remediating 2, and now is just failing that 1 class at the 25-week mark. What the asterisk down there was is some of these students who have remediated this work and aren't failing classes, aren't failing multiple classes, they're still asking to come back and be part of remote day. That connection and that engagement means a lot to these students. And it's hard to sometimes, say, I don't know, and I'll have to get back to you and figure out the logistics of it, because we have to make sure that we're providing that structured, small environment to as many students as we can who need that desperate help.
So the high school had the same idea. We wanted to bring in kids who were failing in multiple classes, basically 2 or more. I've been calling parents, getting people to come. As Chris said, one of the great things is we've had kids who have been full remote all year. Parents were concerned, they had COVID concerns, they don't want to send their kids to school when there's moving from class to class, there's a bunch of kids here. But under this model, we said, okay, here's the thing, there's not going to be many kids. We can keep it much lower, we can keep it safe. I had several remote students come in. Some kids I even made special accommodations to sit in the main office do work, or sit in guidance and do work, because I wanted these kids who were struggling at home to be able to come in, see their teachers in person, some for the first time all year, and to actually have that adult help. And it definitely was really helpful, and it was nice, and the parents were open to it. Originally, we had a group of 26. Of the 26, 22 came in, so 85% of the students come in. Initially, it was something new, so I kept it kind of moderate, and it's grown each time. So now that you see the way it works, we went from 22, on the first couple of remote days, we had 28 come in yesterday, and it would have been a few more, but a couple of kids were quarantined, so that added to the numbers a little bit. And so what was nice about this remote day is that it can continue to expand. At first, I thought we kind of capped out at 30, and that was my mindset when it first started. We had X number of days, we could X number of room, but really what I'm saying is between all the teacher support, between all the space we have at the high school, we could continue to grow this as needed. So to me, that's really exciting, and we will continue to grow it. My staff has been recommending kids to me because initially start off, if you're failing, come in and just work on the class you're failing. We expanded it to come in and just get your work done. So you focus on the class you're failing, but maybe you got a 70 in one class. Well, you're passing it, but we can bring that up to an 80. And so we've seen growth in that area too, which is really exciting. The structure is the same as Chris. We have aides here. The aides offer support. There's assignment sheets. All the teachers fill out a spreadsheet. So the kids know what they're supposed to be working on. The aides go around to help them. But our teachers come in too. I see teachers come in and just pull kids in their room. And the kids will work with the teacher for an hour or two. So we've seen a tremendous amount of teacher buy-in at the high school as well as the middle school. And the students, the experience that Chris had, I had as well is that the students are excited to be here. They don't want to be home. They want to do their work. They know there's distractions at home. This is an opportunity for them to come in. We actually we had a couple of kids who no longer had to come in, about 5 kids who didn't have to come in anymore. So we called them and said, hey, you know, you kind of earned your way out of this, so you don't have to come in. And then they just showed up yesterday, and I was surprised and happy to see. They said, we want to be here. We like to get the work done. You know, and so that, I thought that was really nice. And we keep it, you know, they get to do group work with their friends. A lot of times we have struggling groups of kids in pockets that work together with their friends. You know, we have Brent and Brian come in and do like a little PE activity with them. We give them breakfast, we give them lunch. So it's pretty close to a normal school day. They get a lot done, they get to see people. So it's just very productive and positive all around.
There are teachers meeting the students at the door as soon as they get their breakfast to bring them to their rooms. So the teacher buy-in has been fantastic, and I can't say enough about the help that the teacher aides who've been assigned to my building have been absolutely fantastic. At any moment you can walk by a classroom and you see, you don't see someone sitting in the corner and 4 students working. You see, someone floating around and offering help and asking for, answering questions and reaching out to teachers if they need help, or if the student says, hey, they're done with their work, and you come down and see them. It's really been a fantastic initiative.
Yeah, and it's just the same thing over here. So the results, so when I took it was from the 15 mark to the 25 mark, because progress reports are always, there's always when you have more failures, because the grades aren't official. Progress reports kind of, used to spur people who may not be doing so great. So we had 50% of students who came in are failing less now than they were at they were failing less at 25 weeks than they were at 15 weeks. 18% are failing more, and 32% are failing the same number. So we're 50-50 at the high school. But that's still 11 kids who are now failing less than they were. Of that, 23% of the students were now failing 1 or no classes and are no longer in need of the service. So I thought that was, great that we had kids literally failing 5 that are now failing 1 or 0. So I think that's pretty fantastic. And so that it just goes to show you the power of being here. Every kid we brought in, one thing we didn't touch about was, we've been bringing in kids daily at the high school from September. Kids just sit in Miss Hammond's room and work. And every single kid, when they're here, they're doing considerably better. It's just a fact. Students need to be in school, and then the evidence couldn't be clearer. Because as these kids come in, you see an improvement in grades, you see improvement in their emotional well-being, you see improvement in their socializing. So kids are happy. And as Chris said, I think we're going to have at least a year or two where kids don't say, I hate school anymore, and then the honeymoon period will wear off and they'll get back to it. And just to go back just 1 second, because it's blocked by the TV, but of the students who improved, so the average improvement rate was 54%. So they had, failing 54% less classes than they previously were. Okay. So rather than, Chris kind of gave snapshots, I just want to give you the raw data. And so you can really see is there's 2 columns. I just called the students A, B, C, D. And then you can see it's mixed results. You have a student who's failing 5, and now it's failing 1. And then you have a student who's failing 4, now failing 5. So you kind of go down the list and see the students who generally grew very well. And a couple of students, it didn't make a difference. And those students are still coming in. We're going to keep pressing them. And I just think there's a lot of opportunities here, and the teachers are taking advantage of it, the students appreciate it, and so I just think it's going to continue to do better. Before we move on, because we're going to move on to let the teachers talk about the engagement in their classroom, are there any questions just about anything we've said so far? Scott?
So that's 1 day a week that each of you are doing this, right?
1 day every other week.
Every other.
Yeah.
So essentially, it evens out to every other week, just the way holidays and whatnot fall. That's not possible. So we've committed to twice a month that this is happening, and we try to scaffold it to where it is on an every other week type of basis.
Right. With the calendar, sometimes you wind up with 2 in a row, but that's the average.
If I may, I think this is fabulous. I have had students be like, yeah, I just only 1 out of 10 my work, but I didn't go in that day. Is this something that we continue to use even on a normal school year?
I guess we'll have to get through normal school year first and then talk about this. But I'm glad that you're hearing that, because it's nice to hear from the student perspective too. And it definitely is something that I've seen overwhelming positivity towards.
I wonder, is it worth a push to to finish the year with more frequency of this and see if we can make more of a difference before academic years are finalized for students.
That's a good question. I don't have an immediate
I
answer.
think the other side of that is the other students who want the regularity of coming in, and the teachers who want to still finish their curriculum, so it's that juggle. You know what I mean? Now, what we're hoping for, Scott, is the CDC guidelines to be adopted by New York State, and then we can see how we can rearrange some of that scheduling to get kids in more.
In terms of space in
Yeah, so we're still assuming an answer to the question in terms of what we still do for lunch.
Yeah, I'm just thinking we have enough weeks left in the year that we could potentially help a number of more students. So I'm just thinking, you know.
I see both sides of it, because on one hand, it is objectively great. When you look at the data, you hear the positivity, it's objectively a good thing. And then the flip side is, it's great for those kids, and it can definitely be expanded, it's not limited to the 25, 30 that we have, but then that's also days where the rest of the school, or maybe will be coming in that day, doesn't get to come in, doesn't get to see their friends, doesn't get to see their teachers. So it is a juggling act. It's a good thing, but sometimes good things, if you do them too frequent, lose their oomph. And so I don't have the answer right now. I just think that it is a balancing act.
I thought you went to back to a 4-day rotation.
Yeah.
So what's driving the every other week versus every week?
It's just one extra day where everyone can come in. So for example, this week, our group 4 students have come in 3 days. They came in Monday, they came in today, they'll come in Friday. So those group 4 kids will see us 3 times. If next week was a 5-day week, they would see us 3 times. So it gives us, when you just do every other, 2, 2, 2, you have one group coming in 3 times a week each week. So those kids get to see everyone, get the benefits of being in school 1 extra time per week, which also has a lot of benefits.
I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstood the 4-day rotation. I was thinking the 4-day rotation was on average you had an open day every week for some students.
Oh no, so yeah, the 4-day rotation is like 4-4. In high school, I was doing middle school, it's easier. So middle school is like day 1, day 2, day 2, day 1, and then next week's 1, 2, 2, and so on and so on. And so you get that group of kids that gets to come in 3 times per week, on that week.
There have been neighboring districts that adopted a model that is you're essentially a cohort that's Monday, Tuesday, or you're a cohort that's Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday has been a consistent remote day, whatever the case may be. 2 of my children go through that. We thought adopting a model that was a 4-day, and you're in for 2, essentially virtual for 2, back in for 2, virtual for 2. It built as much consistency as we thought we could. We put out a pre-published calendar for right now. You know what every day from now till the end of the year is going to be in terms of are you in school or are you not in school, regardless of remote day, regardless of if there was a snow closing or anything like that. We tried to give a predictable calendar to families from the beginning of this year because we thought that was important because we're juggling here, but families are juggling at home as well. So trying to build that predictability into it as well.
I guess I'm not sure the difference in predictability between a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday model and a 2-day, 2-day. But
One of the groups gets an extra day every week.
okay.
And that the model that has existed in other schools, I use Little Falls as an example because my two oldest are there. That model essentially has gone away. So now what they're doing is if you're a Monday, Tuesday, this week you're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, next week you're Monday, Tuesday. This week you're Thursday, Friday, next week you're Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they're doing it the same thing, but in a different order now. That remote day, as guidance has changed a little bit and other districts have moved towards what we've been doing essentially, that remote day has started to go away.
So on that, I'll turn it over to the first grade team.
No, it's actually going to be Lauren first. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so Mrs. Goldman, our K through 12 technology integration specialist. She's here to talk to you about how we're trying to engage students using some of the digital resources we have. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and some of these things you might remember from Lauren's updates about some of the platforms she's using, and these are platforms that teachers throughout the district are using, or that the school board has provided some type of PD on, or teacher tutorial.
So the first of these is, of course, ClassCraft. And although focusing mostly when I talk about our remote students, it's been equally as engaging for the in-person. So we were talking about social emotional learning earlier, and this is a big part of that. Actually, I wrote down, just made a quick note when we were talking about that, because the sense of belonging that is involved in ClassCraft, the positive messages they can write to each other, still monitored through me, is one of the parts of it. In the lower left-hand corner there, you see one of the student wrote saying, "I'm very happy to be in this class." That's huge to me because that means that that student felt like they were in the class, even though she was fully remote. So the other part of it is that the social emotional learning is in some of the quests, which I'll talk about later, but they actually have a social emotional learning curriculum component in ClassCraft. So just wanted to mention that.
I'm sorry, I don't need to jump in. This has been one of the really cool problems to have this year is, as teachers monitor what students are doing, they think they're playing video games. Because essentially this allows Lauren to embed the curriculum into what looks like a video game world. So it's like a gamification of curriculum. And I have to kind of explain to teachers that, no, this is okay, it's Lauren's site, they're actually on a mission in ancient Egypt, or whatever the case may be. It's been a really fun conversation to have, I thought.
Okay. And that's the point, because it does look like, I don't know, maybe Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft, something like that, if kids play that. But there's none of that aspect to it, it's only the look of it. So identity and choice, and I think it's covered by the little webcam part, but also agency and collaboration, because they have abilities, which are called powers, that allow them to either benefit themselves or benefit others in the class. Quest, as I was talking about earlier, one of the things I just want to point out quickly is there's at least three. Yeah, there's 3 units, which are quests, 3 units in ClassCraft that the company made specifically with social emotional learning in mind. And some of the questions are all aligned with the benchmarks that we have through the state. So some of the things that some remote students and others have shared, sometimes I'm like, okay, now I know I should go talk to Miss Vito or something, just because I'm like, maybe something, maybe not. And then boss battles, they love those, whether they're remote or not, especially if they're remote, they can just chime in with their voice, and it's just like they're in the room. They like having a competitive quiz, basically. And then the other thing is the pets, which they collect, something they can collect, basically, from earning points. And this project here, when you get the presentation later that you can access, this is a link to the website they made, both the picture and the words down there link to the website that they made. And when I say they, I mean 3 remote students. 3 fully remote students in 6th grade collaborated on something related to ClassCraft. So, engagement. The second one is Nearpod. I just picked 2 examples of how it engages. One is the collaborating board where they can throw the ideas out and then basically vote on it and give each other feedback. In this case, they were voting on the team name. Even something as small as that, they love that piece. And then the other piece in the upper corner is an interactive video, which I think you've also seen in Edpuzzle, probably familiar with that, where every so often there's a dot that tells them when they're going to stop and answer questions. And they can do that on their own pace, at their own time, and engage however they need to. Lastly, Screencastify, which we use to make tutorials for our students. Now, well, I say now, but it's been a little while, has a product called Submit, and now students can become the presenters. So by that I mean they can make the same kind of tutorial videos that I've been making for the staff and for them. They can, and they have, these are both actual videos here. One for a 7th grader and one for a 6th grader. that made a video I asked them to do both their webcam and their screen, demonstrating something about classcraft. And they could do that at their leisure before or due date, just like any other assignment. It's extremely easy for them to use. I've had many kids do it without any help. I believe Miss Studdle's second youngest, no, both of the two boys, sorry, both of Miss Studdle's boys used it without really having any guidance of what to do. They just, they could tell what to click on. And the best part about that was that they got to be the explainers and don't have to have a live audience. So sometimes for our students, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, they're a little shy about presenting sometimes. And this is a nice way they can present.
Screencast by Submit really changed the game for performance-based evaluation too. So if you're a teacher, a music teacher, art teacher, or you want to physically see a student doing, an athletic motion or something like that, they can videotape themselves singing, they can videotape themselves performing, and they submit it to a secure link to just that teacher. So, I want you to play these three, I don't know, bars, lines, whatever the case may be, for 25 seconds and then submit it as your assignment. And then the teacher can sit there and listen to that student just like they're in the room and give them a valuable feedback, give them that formative assessment, if it's incremental or even a summative assessment at the end. So it allows students to engage differently in a different model, and you see it at the elementary level. I've seen my second grader record themselves in choir or for chorus in elementary school and submit a 20-second recording. And that teacher being able to take all of those and layer them into an actual video that they then shared out with the community for a holiday concert. So it really does, provide multiple different platforms for engaging those students who are not only here, but also, as Lauren said before, the ones that are home that we're really trying to bring into the school community as much as possible.
And all three of these work together. As you can tell, this is something about classcraft that they made with Screencastify, but they also all work with Google Classroom. So just want to point that out.
And it has some student data in here, some names specifically. So I'll share this presentation out with everyone here tonight so they can view these videos and check out these links. But I don't know if we should play them because it will play out probably.
Question?
Oh, yeah.
So what grades are you using this, and is it something that students are required to do, or do they do it, do they volunteer to use this? And if they do, what percentage are doing it?
Grades 6 through 8 right now. Although technically there are some 9th graders who used it last year. I have some
for classcraft.
for classcraft, yes.
Nearpod is something that teachers will push out. So Nearpod basically makes a presentation, so something like a slideshow, an interactive thing. So it's not just, someone standing up here, kind of like we're doing right now, and talking to you about it. Students can interact with the slides, and it becomes something that is more engaging. You can embed a video, you can embed a quiz, you can embed different directions using Nearpod. So that is something that's more teacher-focused, that allows them to create interactive and more engaging lesson delivery. And then Screencastify Submit. Screencastify, as Lauren said, is a method of sharing or delivering your instruction. The Submit is the ability for students to then record themselves and submit it back to you.
That part I've only used with mostly middle school. But when I mentioned teachers' kids, that was specifically I asked them to try it with parents there, so I could see what the other kids thought of it. And what was the second part?
What percentage of students are
Percentage,
doing
yeah.
it?
So for classcraft, you're talking about required for that? Okay. So that, because I made it a centerpiece of my courses in library/information fluency, I made it so that it would be great if they did. I had all of them at least create a character because they liked the identity and choice behind creating and customizing their character. Because you can choose them and say whether or not they earned a positive behavior points or whatnot. So there was a purpose in having them be part of that, even if they didn't use some of the other components. And then that also allowed them to participate in many of the other activities related to it, but it wasn't required because the same activities, I mentioned Google Classroom integration, the same like lesson-based activities were still in Google Classroom. So I could choose whether it was linked to Classcraft or not, and whether they went into Classcraft to get to it didn't matter, as long as they could get it in Google Classroom.
You're essentially allowing students to interact with the content in a different manner.
Yep.
I might be more, as a 6th grader, I might be more apt to sign into something that looks like a video game and do that work to earn those little couple things, where I also maybe the 6th graders like, you know what, I want the 5 slides in the packet to work on. So you're building choice in there, which, you know, the more times you build choice into any activity, it just benefits all students.
And I would say 100%, because in all the grades I've had, in all 3 quarters, we're almost at the tail end of quarter 3. I have not had anybody that didn't want to do it at all. Everyone's done at least some, and I have to say, some of the kids that were the most struggling and reluctant or disengaged in, regardless of remote or not, have been the most animated and engaged in participating using it. Because it looks cool.
In terms of Nearpod and Screencastify, 6 through 12, I assume probably every student has seen this at some level. I'm pretty sure Mr. Schaff and Mr. Horner use Nearpod in their delivery of instruction, so it's something that probably every student has seen at some level. It might not be daily in every class, but it is something that is being used widely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry, I almost went away earlier.
Just let you know too, Lauren's been pushing out a lot of PD for teachers. She's created websites, website with information on students. The student teacher can use Google applications, all types of different apps, and she has videos showing how to do certain things, and she's not going above and beyond. I think that site where they can go back and look at that anytime to, you know, to get resources. So it's been really good.
And getting very close to be our first Google certified trainer.
Yes.
So she has level
They
1
already
and
have
2
level 1 and
certifications.
2 done.
So the next step is being Google certified trainer, and then on the way to Google reference district and things like that. Excellent.
So I teach 1st grade. I've been here 22 years. This is my 14th year in 1st grade. I bring along my fabulous 5. They're part of the fabulous 5 here in 1st grade. And I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we'll share a little bit what we do in 1st grade and how we incorporate engaging learning.
Hi, I'm Holly James, and I get to teach reading to the 1st grade this year.
I'm Andrea Tor, and I'm teaching science and social studies as well as doing some writing. This is my 3rd year of teaching.
I'm Angel Fowler. I'm a one-on-one aide in Mrs. Lotuki's homeroom, and I've been doing that for 2 years.
I'm Penny Biltucci. I'm a special ed teacher. I don't know how many years I've been here, but lots. And we're still going strong. But before, this is not a typical elementary atmosphere, and we take breaks. So before we begin the presentation, we do have cookies and candy. So if everybody would stand and come and take a little break so you can really concentrate. Elementary people are not shy when it comes to food and snacks.
and middle and end of our day is, having a little snack, having some rewards, a cool pencil to write with, a little desk pet, and so we use those things, as motivating factors for our first graders. So I know we've talked a lot about remote learning, and we've had remote learners I'll talk about in a little bit, but we are teaching the traditional, normal, teachings of first grade as the rest of our elementary team is as well. We try not to put our children in front of screens for a lot of activities. We do use the computer screens for part. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But we do, where the pencil, paper, crayons, cutting, coloring, gluing type of learning in first grade. So, as you can see, and I'll share our pictures here, most of them are pictures. It really is a teamwork. We call ourselves the Fabulous Five here, but it is a teamwork with all of you as well. So we have administration, teachers, aides, and of course the students and their families. So let's start with administration. Mrs. D, as the children lovingly call her, meets the children at the bus every day, but even more so, she's in our classrooms every day. She's stopping in. She's not just hello, what are you learning? How do you do it? Tell me what, where you're going. And so the children really love her. And, she'll come in and say, you have a story for me to read? And there it is. And so with these smaller pods of children, mostly because of physical spacing, we have been very, very, very successful in what we're doing. Dr. Nick is the children call him as well. Very familiar face in our first grade hallway. Also comes in and visits with our children. This happens to be a picture of him reading. It looks like just in the first grade class of Mrs. James, but our remote learners are there. That computer is set up there in the front of the room, and he is reading to them as well, just as we teach our remote learners from that screen every day. All right, so let's talk about who we are and what we do. Here's a great little selfie. The best part of our world. We were honored to be asked by 2 colleges to host student teachers this year. And so Mrs. Beltucci and Miss Coble and I had Miss Baker, and they were a really great asset to our community. Our first graders keep saying, when is Miss Baker coming back? It's almost like she's just been absent. And so, great resource to them learning how things are different in this time of our new learning period. All right, so when we thought about what do we do and how do we do it, the first part, of course, is classroom expectations. It's like that in a normal year as well. We kind of look at data kind of drives where we are and where we're going or where we need to go back to. We are really learning our next-gen standards and writing our lessons from that. And of course, it's goal setting and organization, teamwork, hence the Fabulous Five. All right, our homeschool connection. So we send home weekly notes, usually every Friday, about what we're going to be teaching. So families can reach out and say, I don't understand what this is, or special events that are coming up. And we do this every single week. Parent-teacher conferences. Quite often we took the phone and put it in the middle and speaker. Most of our conferences were done jointly as well. It wasn't just me speaking to one family, because we are a team of teachers. We're having those conversations with families. And we do lots of special activities, as was noted earlier. And I just put a couple pictures of some things going on there. All right, so let's talk about that homeschool connection. When we started the year, we started with 5 pods, 5 groups of first grade students. And we're now down to 4, just the way we did some reconfiguration. But this is how we met our families. And do you mind playing this? It's only about a minute and a half. how we were able to reach out to families and say, look at us, usually open house, normal years, the halls were packed, our classrooms were packed, and this was our way for them to see kind of who we are and what we do. So let's talk a little bit about what we do for our students as far as their learning. We have developed a homework program, and so we do some reading and math with that based upon individual levels of learning, and we are able to send those home. The parents love having a book that's just right for their child. So important, a lot of families don't have a lot of books, or they have books that maybe aren't a good fit. And so these are some really great things that we do. Students love it. They have a collection of books to pick from every day. Which book do you want to take home tonight? And then we've also incorporated a little bit of math work with that as well. We reread these books in independent read, and we're able to pull students to read with them individually to make sure their fluency is where it needs to be as well. Let's talk about our remote learners. So we started the year with about 13 students remotely, or 12 or 13. And so what's been happening, we had a few friends choose to go homeschool, and then we had some few students choose to come back. We anticipate most of our students returning by the next date, April 20th, and we will be down to one remote learner. So we've been able to help the families be ready to come back. And I just would like to share an example of that. We had a mom who was really, really, really nervous, so we used our remote day to invite the families in there with it. I don't want to be around a whole lot of other children. And we said, come on in, meet with the teacher. We were actually able to, I was able to spend almost an hour with a mom and answer every question. She had sent me a list of like 25 questions and said, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And how do I do that? And what about this? And what if they're quarantined? What if I go better? What about? And I spent an hour with her, and when she left, she said, I feel so much better. I wish I had come to you in November and had these questions answered then. So my children are ready to come back. She has 2 children. My children are ready to come back. So we made some good gains there. We have some families who still are a no, some are a yes, some might switch, and we are able to still teach them completely as a first grade student. We send home every single supply a child needs, whether it's a coloring sheet, a coloring cup, a project, art supplies from Mr. Baker. We've been sending home, they've been making kites, and so we've been able to give them everything that they need to be just like a first grader. All right, so we have a couple teachers' aides who'd like to take out. We have one with us today. We have Mrs. Fowler, and she's a one-on-one aide that works in the classroom. She greets all the children there in the morning as children come in. We all say good morning, and she has really allowed her students to grow and understand what we're doing in first grade learning.
I would say he's made so much growth that she's able to help more than just him and also us. I mean, she does the bulletin board, she does creativity.
And then we're working on building independent skills, and so it's been a phenomenal job there. So she's not with us tonight, but this is Miss Valenta, Elizabeth Valenta. She is one of our iReady aides. Mostly works in first grade. She does work with a couple other grade levels and period here and there. And so her main job is having children work in iReady. She's maintaining a data binder. She's doing check-ins with them. She's got a positive success board with them. And so she's been really a great asset to our first grade team. All right, let's talk about first graders because that's obviously why we're here. And our highlight of our day, of course, is learning and teaching and learning with them. Okay, iReady is our computer-based lesson delivery and assessment program, but we are also using a program called Extra Math to help build some fact fluency. So there are some pictures there of the children showing their good success.
I'm sorry, what is that other program you signed up
Extra Math. It's a free program online. It really is just about math fact answer. You have 6 seconds. Math fact answer. You have 6 seconds. If you don't know, the computer gives you the answer, and you're guaranteed within the next 30 seconds you're going to see the problem 3 or 4 more times. So we're looking for some memorization skills. First grade is the year where we really start seeing growth in memorization. We look at spelling and reading, but we're also looking for that in math. You know, we've never really put the pressure on in first grade before for math fluency. So we are, and we're doing small numbers, of course, but we are seeing some nice growth with the students in the extra math program. Mrs. James teaches ELA, and there's a couple pictures of some of our friends there getting ready for her to come into my classroom. And our program is Wonders, and they have an enormous amount of materials for us to use to build vocabulary, build the coding, comprehension, and you name it, she does it, grammar, and so those are the pieces there. I teach math. We use the Ready curriculum, which is connected to iReady, same company. And, you know, there's a lot of paper and pencil in math, but we've really built in some real life experiences for them, and I got a couple pictures there, manipulatives. We've been learning to turn and talk from 6 feet apart, using our whiteboards to share our information, which is really in a traditional sense of first grade learning. Mrs. Hart teaches science and social studies. We really embed science and social studies. We see a lot of writing. And we have a district directive or an elementary directive to use the race strategy. Mrs. Story, remind me. Restate, answer, cite, explain. And so we're doing that when we do retelling or answering questions. So a lot of great hands-on work as well, learning about our world. And there's just some pictures of some things that we do. I want to talk about Big Bertha here. This is a cart, and we each have one. Mine was a little different. Andrew and Howie's are the same. We are mobile. Everything that we need is on our cart, and we kind of drive from room to room, making sure we have all the materials that we need and ready to go for learning. Lots of great grade level, but we really work as a team to make sure that children are getting a uniform experience from all of us. And so those are just some of the things. And we just want to say it's a privilege to partner with you to teach our first graders. We absolutely love what we do. Any questions? We'll take them, Mr. Brody.
You know, this year is a new model with, you know, having subject areas and then going from class to class. And I was just wondering, what is your feeling about that? How do you like it? Do you think it's something that should continue? What's been your experience?
Well, I'll go first. I have a master's in reading. I feel like I was put on this earth to teach reading, and I am teaching math this year. So I personally struggled with missing that. But I have to, you know, and I'm getting better as the year goes on. I'm taking reading and using it in math. You know, I'm like, oh, I know you learned this word last week in reading. It's the word place, and we're doing place value now. And I'm going to take it from your word book and put it up here for math. So I'm starting, you know, I'm getting better about making connections. I feel like I'm definitely a better math teacher. I teach the same lesson 4 times a day. I am becoming a true master in math. So I know the others will speak up as well. I think we all feel the same.
So I teach science and social studies, and I was a little unsure at first, but I have to say I'm loving it, and I love that I know those standards. I'm really able to get to know that subject area, those content, the standards, and all that we need to teach our first graders. So at first I was a little but I love it.
I love reading, so I was like, I got the golden ticket, so I'm like, yes. So, I love it because I love reading, and it's so cool to see the children grow, and from going from class to class, I actually love knowing the whole first grade. And then when we get together, and even going through the hall, I can just say to Michelle really quick, you know, she's a little off today, or something like that, and it's just that quick passing, just so she has a heads up. Ooh, something might not be right, kind of thing. So that is a really cool aspect. And I have to say, behaviors have been really good. So, and it also gives us a fresh start. Every 50 minutes, that child has a new teacher, and we have a fresh start going into a whole new room. So it's kind of cool, math too.
As a special ed teacher, I support it entirely. Some of the children who had behavior problems, really, I do not have this year teachers coming to me about any of the students, because they're only with them for 30 minutes and then they take off. They have that child all day long. It created a lot of problems. So I'm seeing this year, the regular teachers getting to know the students so much more. Just because they have an IEP, they look past that. I think you can see all the different levels. I think what I'm also observing, when a teacher has the one subject area, they're differentiating much more than I've ever seen in the past, because they're able to dive into that subject matter. And I think more than anything, they're using data. They have time to analyze the data, to drive their instruction. And this is something really new for the elementary. For me, being like not really a co-teacher, I'm the director and but I'm seeing the atmosphere, the growth of students like I've never seen before.
Angel, what do you think?
I agree with all your comments.
I told her to say that.
Along those same lines, if we pursue this model, do you think that people should stay as subject matter expert, or as teachers should we rotate?
We've had this lengthy discussion amongst us, so it's funny that you bring that up. I think I would like to stay in that. I think I need to refine my skills and continue to become the master teacher in math. And I think my teammates feel that, if we're still doing this 3 years down the road, maybe we go for a shift. But I think, meeting us kind of where we are, especially this year and looking forward, I think it would be a good place to stay the same.
I also think, especially this grade level, we all recognize and we can have an open discussion. Each of us have our own strengths and weaknesses. So if your reading is the strength, maybe you will do your reading for 3 years. But it's really allowing that person to do, because the next generation standards, to really connect the curriculum with that. Anytime, I've been fortunate as a special ed teacher, I've taught from kindergarten to grade 8. And usually, the first year I don't know what I'm doing. The second year I dip my toe in. By the third year, you can become creative to understand the curriculum. In order to really understand the grade level and the curriculum, it takes at least 3 years, in my opinion. So I would think this model would have to stay, a person would have to stay, I would think at least 3 years before we would switch. But then I think it's very important to switch, because then you understand, like if you're doing math, you need to learn the reading also.
And you know what, the kids get consistent curriculum for math, reading, every kid in first grade. Nothing, it was wrong or different, it's like consistent across the, across.
I have a totally different question, because we've had a discussion about this. So how would you feel about introducing foreign language at a young age in our curriculum?
Well, I'll jump in because I almost feel like in a way I kind of do. I use a lot of sign language, and so as I teach reading, I often refer to the letters I'm doing as I sign it too. So, and I had Mika's children in my class, and it's so fun because I don't know, you might want to share what your perspective was as students, because I would sign to them and they would always be excited because they could sign their own name, and I could also keep teaching if they wanted to use the bathroom, and I could answer them, and I didn't miss a beat, I kept on teaching once I showed them the basic signs. And so, it's not a foreign language, but it is in a way.
It would be interesting to see, what would be proposed with that, and I think, it would be definitely a benefit. When we think about what we teach now, the day is past tight, very, very tight, and so something would have to give in the day to put that in place. But it definitely, I have a senior in high school who's been taking French since middle school. I can't imagine where his growth would be had he started, 2nd or 3rd grade, what that might have looked like for him, how far more he would have gone. So that would be an enticing question.
I also know in iReady, one of the questions, they do have a little bit of Spanish in there already, because I happen to have a little ENL student who's Chinese, and I'm like, bless this girl's heart. She speaks Chinese at home. Her father only speaks Chinese, and she's learning English, and she does very well. And then she was learning Spanish through the iReady thing. I'm like, oh, wow. And she was doing it, but it was amazing. So they do have a little bit, just through the iReady program, so it is embedded a little bit, so they're introduced to it at least. And that might be what we would be looking for at the first grade, because they're trying to master English.
Yeah.
So they might not want an official, lesson on Spanish or French or whatnot, but to be introduced to it, such as in iReady, it might be a nice idea.
Thank you.
Okay, well, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and sharing your experience with us. And I also want to thank you for the enthusiasm and energy and commitment that you've made to teaching in a very difficult year. And I just want to say thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we thank you.
You're welcome. We're very honored. And we love what we do, so that's why we're here.
Alright, so this is Sean from Mr. Martin. Just want to talk a little bit about the engagement, and really their focus is going to be on the hybrid instruction, where they have remote kids and in-person kids, and how they integrate them fully into the classroom. So I'll let them take it from here. Are they set up? Can they hear me?
Yeah, hi, can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Okay.
All right, I'll share my screen with you guys if that's all right.
Yeah.
While Phil's doing that, I just want to thank Mr. Bettino and everybody. He reached out to us. It was very flattering that he chose us, and it's always nice to kind of, join you guys and be able to share, some of what we're doing in our classroom. And, just to echo what everybody's been saying, Mr. DePaulo started out talking about the time and the money that we invested with the quarantine last year. I can't emphasize enough, the infrastructure that was in place when Phil and I came into our classroom has been invaluable. I mean, it's allowed he and I to be teachers. And I think for the students coming in who all have Chromebooks, have just unbelievably benefited from all of that. So thank you. We've also benefited from the fact, 5 years ago, this board and our administrators and our school had the faith and the trust in us, in Phil and I, to completely throw out the curriculum that the rest of New York State was doing and allow us to go in a direction where we co-taught, we were in the same classroom, we had freshmen and sophomores in the same classroom. To my knowledge, it's the only way that we're the only classroom that does it this way in New York State. And I can tell you, our kids have not skipped a beat. The sophomores coming out of our class are going to know their material, and they will have had the same experience every other class before them has. And Phil and I try to give our kids just that, an experience, not just learning material, but being part of the classroom and having one-on-one relationships with us. And I think, that's on a broader scale exactly what we've tried to do this year. So co-teaching has been invaluable. The smart boards, the Chromebooks, the infrastructure. Phil is extremely good with Google Classroom, and we started implementing this in our classroom. We went almost exclusive Google Classroom, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago. So again, we had all of this in place when last year hit, and I think that allowed us to kind of not skip a beat too. And our kids are very well versed in all of this. Google Sites, Google Slides. Every kid that we have maintains their own site. And what I mean by that, essentially they produce their own online portfolio that includes their vocabulary, their work for us, presentations that we do, and they have that both freshman and sophomore year, and they also have it their junior year when they go on to take American history with Blake Smith. So that has been extremely helpful. To give you an idea of how we've been able to use all of the materials that you've provided us with to help kids learn this year under these circumstances, again, if you're fully remote, if you're with us part-time, we want you to not only learn global studies, but be part of the experience, and we want you to have a one-on-one relationship with us. One of the examples I'll use is what Mr. Bettino witnessed when he came in for our first observation. Phil and I developed a couple of years ago a great way for presenting. And it was after we returned from one of the conferences that we went to, and we went into one of the halls, and you had all the vendors there set up, and people rotated throughout the vendors, and they got their spiel, and they decided to invest in what that person was selling, or they moved on. And we decided, you know what, by the end of the day, that they must be so well versed in what they said to each person, and they must be able to say it in their sleep. So we decided to set our students up the same way whenever they presented material that they researched in our class. So instead of having someone get up in front of the class and present to everyone and go one by one through the entire roster, we set kids up in each corner, and the audience members, the other students, rotate around and they get presented to at each station. And this had great retention of material. It allowed the kids who are audience members to move around the room and not get bored. We wanted to continue to do that because it was so beneficial, even though some kids were remote. Phil and I are both in the classroom. We have 2 smart boards, and we also developed 2 different Google Meets for each block. You have the Google Meet that we use for the class, and we also have the office hours Google Meet that we use each remote day. So we were able to bring remote kids, fully remote kids, up, one in the Google Classroom for that block on one smart board, and the other one into the office hours Google Meet. And kids rotated to them just like they were in class. And again, it worked just like it would if everyone was right there together. The other example that I'll use is very much like a doctor's office. Phil will take one of the classrooms, the Google Meet classroom. He'll have kids in there working, being taught. I'll be in the other classroom, the office hours classroom, and Phil will say, okay, Sam, it's your turn. Drop out of this classroom, go see Mr. Horrender in the office hours classroom. He'll come into that classroom, and we'll be able to have one-on-one time where not only he presents to me, but we're able to have a personal conversation, and I'm able to kind of gauge, where he's at and how he's doing. So again, I think it's the involvement of the kids. We've never been 2 teachers who've just lectured and kind of followed that idea, and we certainly are not going to in this environment. Having kids participate in what we're doing is more valuable than ever before. And just being creative. I mean, Phil and I are, you guys know, coaches, athletes, we're competitive. I think to a certain degree, we've enjoyed this challenge. It's allowed us to kind of grow as educators. And I really think that the kids are almost better off, if I could say that. I think they've developed skills technology-wise that they otherwise might not have had under regular circumstances. I've talked a lot, Phil. I'm going to hand things over to you.
No, you're good. To reiterate what Phil started with was, I just want to say again, thank you for, number one, the opportunity to speak tonight, but also giving us the opportunity to have the technology to even be part of this. And I think everyone's been there when it comes to the frustrations of technology. You can have the best of ideas, but if you don't have the infrastructure to back it up, the bandwidth, the Chromebooks, it can not only be incredibly frustrating, it's almost impossible. And we did run into a lot of technology issues when we had this idea to start this co-teaching model a few years back, and that was before we were one-to-one. That was going into the library and begging Mrs. Jones and to borrow some computers. They were paired up with some computers from the English department. We were borrowing space from Evan's room, and it was almost impossible to get one, but we ended up finding, like Phil said, skill set within us, as well as in the kids, that otherwise we would have never utilized. So I think the pandemic has actually forced that on them also, and it's forced that on all of us. So, as foreign as Google Meet might be to a lot of teachers, it really wasn't for us. So I think that was for us maybe a little bit easier transition. And obviously we were willing to help anyone that needed it. Because there are so many options available now, it's almost overwhelming to try to pick and choose which ones are the most effective and maybe utilize. And I think the ones we've chosen have elements of simplicity, so the kids are able to use it on their own time. They have elements of familiarity because, like a YouTube or some of the docs that they've used in other classes they're familiar with, so they don't get frustrated naturally by that. And, sometimes it's even like that gamer's attitude where it's, Mr. Bettino will tell you that gaming mindset is a very competitive thing, and it brings out a part of you that I think is necessary to succeed. So we have a bunch of examples here that we can show you. Phil gave you the idea of the presentation that Mr. Bettino observed us with. Google Meet is a really cool thing with recordings, and I'm sure some of you are aware of that. I think what Phil and I have done is we've taken that a next step, and one thing that we've utilized is YouTube. So because we are Gmail affiliated and we have that Gmail domain, Gmail and YouTube pair up very, very well. So it's very easy for us to take a Google Meet and set up a YouTube account, which we've done. Take that Google Meet, place it on YouTube, and then rather than having a kid search through hundreds of emails from a video of us, we can actually just post it on YouTube. We can post the link, we can post it in the classroom, and a student who either missed class or maybe it was a remote day and we're doing something with the kids in class, they can be watching a lesson, so they're really not missing a beat. And without that affiliation with the Gmail account and having them one-to-one, that never would have been possible. They would have had to look it on their phones. It would have been very, very difficult. Some of the ones we've used in class and at home, I don't know if anyone has ever heard of Pear Deck, but that is a really interactive and organizational piece for Google Slides. And what it is it every slide is interacting and asking questions where we see the responses. The students chime in and answer the questions that we're asking them. They also have a flashcard factory, which if we had time and you're willing to, we could always give you guys an example. You could actually beat the student in that regard, try that out. But it's a flashcard factory in which we create the vocabulary, and while they're working with a partner, they have to draw, to use that side of the brain, an example of the vocabulary word, and then while they're doing that, the partner that they're working with is actually describing the example of or defining the definition of the word that we're giving them. And then they would put on a flashcard digitally that would basically put into a group of basically like an assembly line in which Phil and I would then choose which ones are the best. We take that and put that in the classroom, and people online at home, in person, it doesn't make any difference. They're able to participate with it and have a lot of fun with it, and actually use the flashcards for preparation for tests and quizzes. Hello Smart is a built-in feature that we use in the board, where the kids put in a code either on their Chromebooks or their phones, and they can have interactive teacher-guided activities as well. And I know Lauren and Chris, you guys are mentioning Screencastify. We use a Screencast that has worked very well for us. Granted, it doesn't have that commit feature like you were talking about, but it does work really well. It's almost like it's basically the same thing, except we take that and you can actually see our faces as well as what we're doing on our computers, and then take and upload that to YouTube, which we have certainly utilized a lot when it came to the pandemic, when we were all in quarantine. VBQ is actually something we learned from a conference we went to a few years back, and it was the focus was on DBQs and CRQs. Well, this is a VBQ, which is a visual or video-based question. So we take a Google form, we embed a YouTube video, a documentary, a clip of some kind, and then we have maybe local cartoons as well. And we have them answer questions, and they can go at their own pace. So that's a nice activity that we've utilized that the kids seem to enjoy, because they don't have to watch a video in class. Some people are upset that they're not keeping up the pace. This way, it's totally individualized for them, and they can work at their own rates. We also use HyperDoc. We went to a conference in Troy a few years back, which they explained to us what a HyperDoc was. It's essentially a Google Doc with a variety of different hyperlinks, whether that be pictures of GIFs. Like today, we gave HyperDoc that utilized a U-2 spy plane landing, which is something we're talking about in the Cold War. We've also used videos within that, and the kids seem to enjoy that as well. Once again, it's a student-paced activity where they can go at their own pace. And then, of course, I mentioned YouTube.
Dr. Brody, I wanted to mention something too. You mentioned mental health earlier, and obviously, in the high school, K through 12, this is something we're very aware of. And I can tell you, Phil and I, we could tell you every block which kids will be in that classroom logged in first. And, in the duration of a regular school day, maybe the most important time of important part of our routine, rather, was in between classes. Phil and I would go out in the hallway for that 3 minutes where kids are passing by, and it's that interaction. It's getting that one kid where you're like, hey, how was the game last night? Or, how'd you do in the play? How'd it go? Did you have a packed house? That just goes a long way with building rapport. So, again, we go back to the co-teaching. If Phil is finishing up with one class, one of us will always drop out and go into the next class early, just to have that 5 or 6, maybe even 4-minute interaction with those kids, where it's nothing history based. It's what are you doing? What's going on? What's your weekend look like? Hey, it's a nice day out. So I think, again, you have to get creative. You have to use what we have, which is, what is great compared to other districts. But I can tell you, we're making it work in the high school. I think the adjustments we've made throughout the year and how we've addressed the needs of our students, 100%. We're doing a really stand-up job. I think you guys would be proud of our entire faculty.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback off that, Phil, too, is the relationship aspect. Is it's so difficult. You can be connected through a screen, but you have that interaction per se. You need that physical connection with your students, and I think having them in class, it completely changed the scope of the year, and for that mental health piece, like Phil said, I think it's so necessary for them. And for us too, because we want that interaction. We were never the teachers that like to sit behind a desk in front of a computer screen. We love getting up and moving, and I think the kids do too. So we have a couple of examples if you'd like to see those. Here's the HyperDoc example. So this is something that the kids did today, actually. So they have many different options. Here's a GIF that they're going to answer a question about. They have a video right here, and they'll be answering questions underneath. They have an infographic, as well as an article, an excerpt, and then towards the bottom, we have a map, and then down here is a link to their homework. So everything is one-stop shop. So rather than the old days of giving them 15 different pieces of paper, then it gets lost in their notebook or 3-ring binder somewhere, this is now all in one space. It's all saved automatically by Google, so there's no more excuse like, hey, my dog ate it. It's impossible anymore with Google. So that's an example of a HyperDoc. I have some lessons here, which I think, Andrea, you shared either you could share this with everybody. You have it in a direct link to the YouTube channel of ours, but this is a YouTube lesson for the students actually that were absent in our AP class. And then these are 2 examples of what we talked about, either the Google Meet recordings and the VBQ. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Well, again, we just want to thank you for all the work and dedication that you've expressed, and shown this year to keep our kids going forward. So thank you.
And, as a piggyback, they spoke at a conference locally on the stuff they're doing, featured on Channel 10, featured in the Times Union, and the area knows what these guys have been doing. And it's a strong representation for our district, but more for how much they're thinking outside the box for our students.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah, that really means a lot. We're happy to make you guys proud.
Yeah, we're blessed to be in this district. It's great.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank all you guys for presenting. If you want to stay, you can stay. Obviously, we're going to continue on the rest of our meeting. But thank you very much. Actually, you all have to stay. I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Anybody want to stand before you move on? We can do that too.
I might take you up on that.
You had your own gear, your own pets,
Okay, so we're ready to move on. All right, so the next point on the agenda is the senior class finance. Okay.
Yes, so as we all know, this year has not been the best for the senior class, meaning we are in a little bit of a bind financially. So last board meeting, I was asked to come up with a sort of outline showing what we're looking at right now as our current circumstances and where we want to see ourselves go. So as of February 2nd, the current balance for the class of 2021 is about $1,911.65. Now this does not include our fundraiser from the apparel sale that we need about $172. And this also does not include donations received from our letter campaign, which at that moment, during that February, we were at $535. That is even before the $750 donation we received, along with other $50, $25, $100 donations that have been constantly seeing us receive. And as we're doing this, I keep writing thank you notes to all the different businesses, and also, I also reached out to the Arcal Health Foundation, along with, I have made a list of other businesses in our area that we can send letters to. So, following up with that, we still have our current fundraisers. We're continuing with the letter writing, which has been fabulous, and it's a constantly working way to do it, surprisingly. And so, another thing that we established was a raffle tickets for a 5-pound chocolate bar, and actually today we established that we were going to have a contest, say, whatever senior can sell the most amount of tickets will receive a $5 Hershey bar, which is the right way to look at it. So now our upcoming expenses on May 28th, that's when we plan to have our
Can we
junior
ask a
senior
question
prom.
about that?
Of course.
So I think you said that you had gotten additional donations beyond what we were showing.
Yes.
So what is your total that you're anticipating having now after the donations that have already been committed?
Let me get some quick math going on. So it would be an additional $750 we got from the teacher union, along with what I had seen a $25, $100, and $50 after this day.
175 plus 750, so that's 925 plus 26, 35, so about 35. Okay, that's what I was trying to get at.
I gotcha.
Plus
And
the
so-
raffle and plus possibly some more letters.
Yes.
Compliment 4,000.
Yes, it's great. And we are continuing to do this up until April break. And I mean, who's saying that we can't continue this if people are still willing to donate? Is that no loss to us? It's simply either sending an email or having a student send one to a family member in Florida, which we have received. It's great. It's very nice to see. I'm sorry. What's the goal?
As much as possible.
As much as possible. And I think that'll help with the upcoming expenses. This was given to me by my advisors. So for our prom, the 28th, that is going to cost approximately $1,000, and any costs not covered by ticket sales will be split with the junior class, and that will be explained more in our second presentation. And now, as I like to say, I like to show this and show it cross out. It was that we would have had to have an expense of $250 for our class photo. We won't have to have that anymore. Thankfully, it's great. And now, any other funds that we have left over, and this will be included in this, is the admission fee of a park, whatever state park we decide to go to, which we will be making a decision soon, and any other things such as what we are doing for transportation.
Can you explain the $1,000 expense? Is that like the down payment for the venue, or is that the balance that's left for the venue?
It was an estimate of the balance left after the revenue.
After ticket sales?
After ticket sales. Yeah, it was an estimate, but we'll get into, that estimate was whenever, this is the more recent that we've recently given.
Good. Got it.
So hey, I'll let you talk about what to say next, but we'll start here. It's all pretty easy.
Let's get this in. Too long. I'm going to move around a little bit. I don't like if I was going to have my back to people, whatever like that, so everybody. So, our costs when we're going to be asking for the students are $50 per ticket, and this is going to be $35 towards the cost of what we need to take for the venue itself, to have it at the theater bar, and $9 towards our transportation, which that we are looking at is school buses. Also, we are going to open it up to the students to see if they have any parents or encourage them to take limos on their own to the function itself, just not students driving themselves. We don't want that. And then also $3 towards the DJ, along with $3 for decorations and favors. So, our total expenses for the venue at the theater bar will be $4,550, and that's based on 130 attendees. At this moment right now, I checked before I came here, we currently have 115 students signed up to go to the prom. And then also, if we have based on 110, it would be 3,850. Now this changes based upon, they say, oh, we're gonna have more people, it's going to be less money, or vice versa. You feel me? So now transportation, we have about $1,500. DJ was costing $625, and that's how we did it. And following up with the decorations, the $200, that's where we get our numbers for saying that in this ticket, this $3 is contributing to our decorations, or the other with the DJ. So now also, we have to have a breathalyzer test, which would be about $200. And so totally.
Let me just give you a point, just to clarify the breathalyzer test. I talked to Officer Peruzzi, and they have a cone, what would be free, where everyone just blows into the same cone. But I just think, given COVID and all the safety concerns, better play it safe. $200 buys you like 600 breath straws, and so that way everyone can just blow into their own thing. And I just think it's a worthwhile investment given what's going on in the world. Okay,
most definitely, no super spreaders. So our total will be about $7,075 based upon if we have 130 attendees, or we have 6,375, and that's based on 110 attendees. Plus the total cost of COVID testing, which is what that'll be on. And our total revenue from the tickets is $6,500, and that's if it's 130 attendees, versus it'll be $5,500 if we have that 110 attendees.
So in that sense, if you look at these numbers, the senior class and the junior class really budgeted very well. So we have, the numbers, you can see we're a little short, but that was planned. They planned for a $1,000 shortfall. And in fact, it looks like, we tried to do a range, because you don't know exactly, somewhere between 110 and 130, but then you're talking about a deficit of somewhere between $575 and $875. So, and they planned for a deficit of $1,000. So they did a great job with that. But what they didn't and could not have possibly anticipated is the testing. And then here's where things get really, really rough, and I don't know what the easy solution is. So one or two things. So the good news is the state has come out to say we could do rapid testing. Rapid testing, anywhere between $30 and $50, depending on where you go, depending on the site. So I just kind of took in the middle, $40 per test. It's not going to be covered by insurance, because insurance only covers the test if you have symptoms. Insurance not going to cover your test because you want to go to your prom. If we could find a site, and that's the other thing, when you have CPS does tests, you could maybe walk in and get a test. We called, hey, we have a whole senior class come? No, we don't have the facilities for that. So if we could find a site, we're talking about, again, based on the same numbers, 110, 130, an additional $4,400 to $5,200 for testing, which is a pretty big amount, and certainly will make things much more difficult for our seniors, and especially our seniors who already struggling to pay the $50 just to come to prom. Now that if we said pay out of pocket, you're now doubling the cost of the prom, which I think would be extremely problematic, and it's something that I really don't want to do, because I want to include as many kids as possible. Now, the nightmare alternative is if we cannot procure a rapid test site. We're trying to find, we've called a few organizations trying to find places that they have testing sites to come. Haven't found anything concrete yet, so we just have an estimated cost. But if we can't get a rapid test, then we have to do the long PCR test, which have a much steeper price range and a much wider range. So, a PCR test can range anywhere from $125 to $350 per test. So I took the minimum number of $125 per test. The minimum number of students, which is 110, we're already at 115, so we're not in that. And then the total cost of the PCR test was a minimum of $13,750. I was afraid to do the maximum. In my head, I kind of know, I didn't even want to put it down, because it's, you're talking about a number that I can't even fathom that us affording. So that's the big obstacle we currently have for prom. Unless the guidance changes, we have over 100 people, it will be an indoor venue, so testing will be mandatory for the prom. So that's a non-negotiable right now, and that's the obstacle the prom community is facing. So, questions, comments?
Well, we have a solution for the testing.
We possibly could, yes. I think we can, don't mind me talk about it when we talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Are the regulations different for an outdoor venue?
So for an outdoor venue, most of the regulations don't change. I think if it's under 200, you don't have to test. So we would be under 200, but then there's a lot of rolling the dice. We're not talking about it, you know. I think it would be hard to find a venue, but then we have to, what if the ink was,
We have to
raining?
go by wedding guidelines right now. That's the kicker.
Right.
Do the regulations change at the school?
No.
What was that?
Do the regulations change at the school?
No, unfortunately. That was the first thing that we explored was, well, because these regulations don't apply to an after school day, but even if we had it here, it's still considered a social function. It would still be considered a wedding, if you will, even though it's a prom of the school.
When is the date for the prom?
The 25th? 28th. It's the Friday before Memorial Day of May.
Well, there's a couple things that, one is, there's a possibility that vaccinations might be available sooner than later, and that would make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is, I was wondering, have you spoken to the county board of health about testing for a situation like this?
So we've spoken to them in that they told us we need to get tested. They haven't provided any guidance or suggestions. All they said was there are organizations that do testing. Do you know about any? There are organizations that do testing. So they didn't give us any specific organizations, but they did say.
In the COVID rescue package that was just passed, there was money not only for vaccinations but for testing.
Yeah.
I think it's something we really need to look at. And then the final thing I just wanted to say is, you have a sense in your mind when you would have final figures for what the shortfall might be in terms of the prom expenses?
So barring the testing, which is it's still so up in the air that we don't know. The budget shortfall, I think what you saw is very, very accurate. The shortfall will be between say $500 and $900, which we already have. The senior class has money, the junior class in their budget has a little over $5,000. Some of that needs to be set aside for their activities next year. So we definitely have enough already to cover the shortfall, but nothing else. Again, barring the testing, which is our big obstacle.
And I definitely think our mindset of not having a set number is because we're scared of things like this. Because, say, the next day, guidelines might change, or they might get worse or better, the vaccinations might be continuing to roll out. Our biggest fear is the testing.
Because if you are vaccinated, then testing would not be needed, is that correct?
Correct. And so that would be wonderful. I don't know. I think Haley again. Can you tell me?
I have my first.
So good for Haley. And if we can get that to everybody, that would be a terrific alternative. How likely that is, maybe not. There's still so many variables. But certainly, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to get tested.
If it wasn't Johnson & Johnson, you'd use a 6-week cycle.
You have to book the venue, so you don't have to do it.
Right.
So what's the deadline of the venue?
Well, right now, we have a deposit down on the venue, so they are holding it for us. Was that?
Is it refundable?
I think if we had to cancel, yeah. So last I heard, it's refundable. I don't know when they say no, it's no longer refundable. I know they're being super flexible. I think they need the income like anyone because they haven't had as many functions and they really want to host the prom. So I know they'll work with us as best as they can, in a reasonable way. And they've been great so far.
I had another question. Is $50 a ticket for the prom? Is that normal?
Yes.
Yes. And I think another thing to look at is what happens the day of when 15 kids test positive and 22 kids are quarantined on top of that the day of.
Yeah.
Is there going to be money built in for reimbursement?
No, they've already got the
No, I'm saying for the students out of the class, that there's something to look at. And like we talked, we're going to have a very thorough meeting with parents and a very thorough meeting with students to explain the ramifications of that happens. So there's another dilemma per se, right? The contract is paid for, the bid is paid for, the limo's paid for, and boom, at 2 o'clock, we test positive. And then the 7 people we've been around, you know.
I want to ask a question with rapid tests. Is it still the case that
Can you talk a little louder?
the rapid testing, is it still the case that they're like vastly inaccurate?
That's inaccurate?
That has been what I have read.
Yeah, I've gotten no information other than that they're wholly inaccurate.
Yeah.
So, I know that like the soccer team is all quarantined right now, and the big question was, well, if they're gonna get a real test, just in case it's really negative. And now we've got all these kids.
And they don't do that.
And they don't do that.
No.
So I'm concerned about the rapid test creating all this drama when maybe there wouldn't actually be the case.
Well, if anything, you get more of a false
False
negative.
False negative.
Is that it?
Which is good and bad, you know.
Yeah.
But the problem is, you know, the good thing is when you go on the prom, you're still 6 feet away, you're still wearing masks, they're in groups, it's not as promised as you think, I guess, that's the best way to put it.
Right,
They're
that's
still
right. It's like,
safe.
are we trying to fit a traditional
Yeah.
into something that just doesn't fit this year? Is there a better way to do it and assure that everybody has a better time? And
again, who knows by the end of May what it looks like too, right?
but it's too late because you have to get it back.
And then the thing is, it's, you know, it's like anything. You make the best of what you have, but the kids can, there's sort of the way the prom is structured. The kids will have a table, you know, 8 to a table, so they'll be sitting with their dates, they'll be sitting with their friends. Every table next to it's gonna have a dance zone, so 36 square foot area where they can all dance within that table. So you have a table of 8 kids being able to dance together, and then every 6 feet there'll be another dance zone. So there'll still be like a robust dance floor, kids will still be able to watch each other dance and yell at each other. And, you know, obviously it's not, you know, your traditional prom, there might not be as much mingling, but I still think the kids are gonna have fun. And then they, you know, this class didn't get a junior prom. You know, this is their one and only, so we have to make the best of what we have. And in my opinion, we have to provide this for the kids. It's just, you know, and I know there's a lot of risks with the tickets and the positive tests, and I think Haley understands that, and all the kids do, but, you know, we want to do everything in our power to make this as good as we can make it under the circumstances. And then if nothing else, it's a special thing as, you know, you'll have the COVID class and the COVID prom, and, you know, it's something to laugh about in 10 years when this is all over.
I guess I'm sorry. My real concern is that this has been an extremely stressful year financially. We're already in a low-income district, so unnecessarily putting all that risk on people, because people are going to do it. They want their kids to have that. I just want to be thoughtful about what we're asking people to put on the line, because $200 for a dress and $50 for a ticket and $50 for a limo, that's a lot for a lot of people.
And I agree. So my opinion of that is a couple of things. So number one, if at all possible, and I don't know if we can, you know, I know fundraising is tough, but, you know, we have some money in reserve, maybe we can make a little more. I would really love, if possible, to be able to refund tickets or if you test positive. It's something completely out of control. And I would love, you know, we have transportation. Our transportation is school buses. We can encourage kids to get a bus instead of get a limo. So that saves money. There's nothing we can do about the dresses. That's an unfortunate necessary risk. But at least if we can mitigate some of the other risks, if the worst thing happens and the kid tests negative, at least they're not hit as hard. But I agree, it's not an easy, you know, and maybe, I mean, just thinking out loud, I haven't thought about it until right this second. But I don't know if it's something we could float around to the class to maybe make it less of a formal, maybe a semi-formal dress instead of your traditional prom dress, so people aren't spending tons of money. That's something the class would have to vote on. They have to assess the risks versus, you know, what they want in the prom. I don't want to make that decision for them.
If I know teenage girls, they've already bought the dress.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I've already seen pictures. So.
A few things. A few years ago, when we agreed for prom to go off-site, I'm pretty sure one of the stipulations of prom going off-site is there were no limos.
There were no what?
Limos. People rode the bus. There was no personal transportation.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to revisit that, because I'm quite sure that was the board stipulation for going off-site and moving the school.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
Second, I didn't see anything about your senior trip in these numbers. So how much are you anticipating that expense to be?
Very small. So we're actually doing 2 senior trips as you know, Kayla and I were talking about our grand plans, and the first day was yesterday. We brought the kids in for a senior picture and important information, which really just was a ruse to get them in the cafeteria to give them the senior Canto game show, which was fantastic and it was fun. And so it was a really nice surprise for everyone. So we're trying to do more of those events. So we have 2 senior trip plans. The first one's a local trip to Nine Corners. We're going to bus them as if it was a regular school field trip. It's free to get in. The kids bring their own lunches. They've done it before, so it's actually a trip that's completely free. And we're looking for something similar. We're still, I think as Haley mentioned, we're looking for another site, similar kind of thing, but something new. They've been to Nine Corners before, so that'll be fun for both nostalgia and just general fun. The next place will be a similar, inexpensive trip. We're going to a park. Most parks are free, or we'll give the school a vast discount. The kids, even if we have to get lunches for them, we're not talking about an exorbitant amount of money. So the amount of money we need for the trips, this year is going to be pretty low because the nature of the trips have to be outside, outdoorsy. We're not going to, we're not going to an amusement park or, maybe something we might normally do.
Just one other thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if you've discussed this at all, but one of the things that we've also asked for in previous years is that no student should be excluded from going to the prom for lack of finances. Do you have any kind of, have you had a discussion about that?
Has the prom committee had any discussion about that?
Yes, we usually, as a class, we do want to have some sort of extra funds for kids that say, like with the cap and gown, if kids can't financially afford those, or say with the prom ticket, if this kid crucially needs some support so they can also have that same experience as the rest of the kids.
So how much is in that? I don't see in here. What's your expectation of paying for students' tickets?
I apologize, I don't have that.
That's okay. Roughly, do you know what we've had to do in the past? Is it 10 students or?
We're typically looking at about 5 students, and honestly, we've been able to get scholarships from other places. Okay. So that's typically been covered in the payments.
Okay, thank you.
I just think students should be made aware of the fact, if there are students who have not signed up, that are not signing up because it's unaffordable, that they should be made aware that there are options for them.
I agree, and I can work with Haley. I have some ideas bouncing around my head to kind of do that in a discreet way where you don't have to call people out.
I think the last question I have is, the 115 people that have signed up, have they already committed that they will get a COVID test to be able to attend the prom?
We haven't had a formal thing saying that, okay, if you do go to prom, you need to have a formal test, which should be something. I mean, some kids may not feel comfortable doing that, or some kids may have lack of faith in it, but that should be something that we definitely should address.
Yeah, and we're going to have a meeting. We're going to have a meeting with the parents and students, and I'm going to go over all the prom regulations. When our initial thing was we have to get a pretty close estimate of how many people are going to the prom so we can start budgeting it and we can start planning it. If 90 people are going versus 110 people, it really changes the dynamic of the prom. So now that we have all those ducks in a row, we can now, meet and say, all right, well, this is the procedure, this is what we're looking at, and make people aware that A, you're going to have to test before you go to the prom, and B, you do run that risk of testing positive, of quarantining, and all the stuff that goes along with that. So that'll be, a deep conversation I'm going to have and make sure everybody understands what we're up against.
And I definitely think as a way we should, if we are allowed to, advocate to our students that are eligible for the vaccine to receive that, because then that will be an additional amount of money out of our budget.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. And I don't know, I just don't know how available it is to teens, but if we could, it would be the best thing.
Right now, 16 and over, they have certain medical conditions that I qualify for, but any other 16 or over that works for the public does have some sort of qualification for it, which a lot of our students do have jobs.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the sense that Montgomery County's been doing a lot of vaccinations.
That's an
So Perry County's been having, Department of Health has been having vaccinations It is starting to get bigger, and then we get 500 a week.
Yeah, actually, Montgomery County has a new. I was just remembering, so I got mine.
If we could talk a little bit, yeah.
Okay, well, one other thing I just wanted to share with you going forward is that we haven't had any real discussion about it yet. But if there are financial problems getting closer to the problem, that's something that we certainly would be willing to discuss and consider. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, and it's greatly appreciated, and I'm sure, I'm speaking for the senior class now, but I'm sure they appreciate all the help they can get, because they've lost a lot, and they've been totally amazing, and I'd like them to lose, to at least gain some things as well.
I most recently told them that, not as a class president, but as a fellow classmate, I said that on stage, we had a little bit of a connection, that I truly care about you guys. And I have made my senior year to dedicate to trying to give back whatever I can to you, and I will do whatever I possibly can in these given circumstances to give you whatever you deserve in this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just keep shutting up. Okay. Okay, the next thing is the budget.
Okay, so I'm just gonna recap the expenditure budget, which is the same as it was 2 weeks ago on March 11th. We have all the current staff and faculty included in the first 4 lines. This includes 6 retiring teachers and everybody else that we have right now that we did not hire just for the 1-year temporary restrictions. Health insurance is still at 5%. And we have the retirement incentive, that was a big increase that we have that we budgeted for next year. For next year, the retirement. So the top part.
Let me just say, should be next week, we should be hearing the numbers back in the health.
Yeah, we'll get those for next year. So I want to focus on the revenue part. I took out some of the columns for the different tax levy amounts. Right now we have 1.9% in there just as under 2% option. So I wanted to focus on, obviously if you go to the bottom, we have 1.2 million surplus to fund balance next year because we have those 2 one-time stimulus payments. So we have the one-time stimulus of the 1.2 million, and then we have the American Rescue Act of 2.6 million. So we were discussing ways to kind of set that money aside for the future, and once we have the final state aid projections on April 1st, then the finance committee can get together and figure out exactly what we decide to, how to use that money, because we have 1.2 million. So we're going to, on the agenda tonight, we have a new capital reserve called the equipment reserve that we're thinking about setting up. And if we approve that tonight, then we at least can put some money in there for future equipment purchases, like one-time purchases, so our budget doesn't go up drastically from year to year. And then we want to put more money into the ERS reserve. We already established the TRS reserve. And then we have a lot of unknowns still. We still have our own insurance rates. We might get more money in foundation aid, which might show up on April 1st budget when we get those projections. We don't know what's going on with the STAR reimbursement that they said might go away. That's $1 million, which we'd have to make up for that somewhere in the revenue part. And we don't know what's going on with next year's restrictions when school does open back up. So we might have to set more money aside for that, or keeping the same crew we have now that we had to hire for COVID. So there's a lot of unknowns, and hopefully we have some answers next week so we can finalize everything.
Do we know what that number is, the people that we've had to hire specifically?
We would need, if we were going to keep everybody we have now, because we would still have the restrictions we have now, we would have to have at least 375,000 included in the budget, or, come out of that fund.
Any other questions? I have a couple, with the health insurance, do you have any sense about whether it will be more or less than 5%, or is that just a
I
blind
really
guess?
don't know, because we've only been on the plan since September 1st. So however they figure out those rates and the claims and all that, we don't have a lot of data, they don't have a lot of data. So,
Our pitch us last year, they said never had double digits, and it ranges anywhere from 4 to 7 or 8%. So,
And they did tell us we were burning a little hot, so.
we got a couple of high costs.
Yeah, I think 5% is as good a planning number as we could have at this point. But I won't be surprised if it comes in a little more than that, if we're still burning hot.
And then another question I had was the ERS reserve. So we're putting in 850,000 this year, but how did that get to 1.2 million?
That's just showing difference
That last column's just a change.
from last year to this year.
Yeah.
Well, we're only putting in 850, so we should have changed the 850.
Well, if you look at the budget 2021 column, we said we were gonna use 375,000, so that's the 1.2 million, is the difference.
It's the swing from 375 positive to 850 negative, which is 1.2.
Okay.
You don't really need to look at that last column in the revenue part, it just shows the difference.
That's just a little bit.
Right, because now we have negatives down there, so it is more confusing.
Okay, any other questions?
Just refresh, if we establish the equipment reserve, it has to get voted on before it's actually effective, right?
Yes, the voters have to approve it in May, in order to establish that.
That's what I thought.
What type of capital reserve, so they have to approve that.
So there's also an amended budget hearing notice on the
Yeah, I saw that.
it would be for any equipment, it would be for any furniture, that would be so a truck, maybe a lawnmower, sort of furniture that you might need. It would be all built in there. That you would spend out of your budget anyway, but you reserve it so it doesn't impact your yearly budget.
Doesn't include a pickup truck with a board program.
April 1st will be very interesting.
At this point, I assume you all heard, but at this point, it's looking very promising in terms of the school issues. They're talking about a 2% foundation aid increase. They're talking about not doing that special aid, consolidation that Cuomo was talking about, but continuing to have, individual things reimbursed in the way that we've been before. They're talking about not allowing salt expenditures to be included as part of our aid package. We'll see. I mean, if the Senate and the Assembly have a firm spine and don't collapse in front of Cuomo, hopefully we'll have a budget that will not be as painful as the one that Cuomo proposed.
Yeah, it could be massive shifts.
Yeah.
And since
So
we
we'll
have,
see. At least, they're proposed, the Assembly and Senate, White House budget that they're proposing would be much more easily lived with than what was originally proposed in the government budget.
And the Finance Committee has 2 meetings before the next board meeting, so we'll put together a plan.
we're trying to put money into those reserves that we can put money into now for the future, so that we can offset the budgets in the future when we don't have any more one-time student payments.
Okay, anything else on the budget?
You just put 100,000 as a placeholder, right?
Yes.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Leo. Moving right along to approvals, I would ask for a consent agenda, the 3.
Make a motion.
Second. All in favor? first thing is spring modified sports.
All of the WAC council schools got together, superintendents, athletic directors, and would like to bring back modified sports for the spring because those kids lost all their season last year. There were 2 seasons in a row they didn't have those. And since they're low impact sports and outside, they would have the least amount of impact.
Any questions?
What sports specifically is that going to be?
Baseball, softball, track.
And where's the state on this now? Honestly, I'll try to keep up.
State is fine. The low risk sports have been improved since the fall.
Okay.
So
those fall into the state's low risk.
Correct.
Sport. Okay.
Actually, all sports are approved right now, but that's a low risk sport. So.
And there isn't a 3% infection rate?
Not for the low risk sports. No. 4%.
Okay, anything else on sports? Okay, second one is the capital reserve fund proposition, that's to pay for the equipment reserve that we were talking about. Any questions there?
No. Why did we make it an ultimate amount of 500,000?
We can only put in 500,000.
That's the max.
I mean,
Right.
let's do it again, talking all.
Can we have more than one run at the same time if we choose to?
More what?
More than one at a time if we choose to, or no?
You might have to call it something different to get it around that.
So did you
Just
say,
thinking of alternatives.
Yeah.
did you say it has to cap at 500,000?
You can only put in 500, so if we have like fund balance, we can only take 500,000 from fund balance and put it in there.
But is
You can
the,
do 100, 100, 100.
but is the cap of the reserve 500, or could we do 500 next year too, and the cap be $1 million?
It's only 500.
Okay.
Gotcha.
You can change the cap next year.
Yeah, you can.
Because they know.
But why wouldn't we, I guess that's my question.
That's my question too.
Well, I'd be a little careful of this approving it too. Remember what's going to look on the budget here. $2.3 million transportation, a $1 million equipment reserve, your fund balance.
I'm not saying that we would fund it at $1 million, I'm saying that we.
No,
Yeah, there's a lot on the
Yeah,
ballot right now.
yeah.
this is very generous and this is also recommended. We talked to Rick Timms, who's just the guru of finances in the state. He met with H&M BOCES, and then I asked him if he kind of sit in the European Leah and gave us his recommendations of what we think we should do if we happen to get the money that we might get. And this was his suggestion. He also said talking about looking at possibly a technology reserve next year because you already have money from your Smart Bonds Act. So don't do a reserve for your money for Smart Bonds Act. Once you put a budget together and start spending that down, then do a technology reserve. So that might be something else you want to look at next year.
The reason I'm questioning that is just some of the longer term conversations that we've had about creating mod spaces and furnishings and things like that.
Sure.
I guess if we go with the idea of presenting this in advance of why we're doing these things, should we set the reserve amount that we might actually want for that longer period of time for all of the changes that we think we might want to do with the district? That was my thought.
And I definitely don't disagree. I just think we're going to have a tall tale this year, and doing it streamline would be smart from my perspective. Okay. Either way, next year we could do it up. So I guess we can do it. Either way.
Thoughts?
I think it's gonna be a tough sell either way.
You too.
I'm not sure.
Okay. And I'll leave it at this.
I mean, one thing I think is clear that, you know, this will be an equipment reserve, but if you have unrestricted or reserve funds, that would be an additional source of support for things that might come up. So it's not like this would be the only source that we could look to for things like what you're talking
No,
about.
it just helps us keep under that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we're creating reserves is to lower the general fund. So, and we can take out of it as we need to, so I'm just thinking, is that one way to shelter money so that it doesn't look like we have all of these, general reserves, but.
It's definitely a catch-22.
It is.
And I think like the pressure off and do it next year and raise it.
Yep. That's fine. That's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement, it's gonna be a tough year with a lot of explanation to make sure that we can get it past here.
Anything else on that? So, basically okay with the way it is at this point? So then, last thing is the amended budget hearing notice. Any questions, comments on that?
It's just the same as we previously approved with the proposition for the.
What was the 2 million that you mentioned for transportation?
That was the,
bus
lease.
reserve,
Oh,
the new bus reserve, because it expires in August. It's only for 10 years, so I bring in another 10 years.
Yeah, I forgot, I'm gonna throw that in there too.
Why is
Yeah,
that,
so
where is that on here, that was my question? I'm not seeing it, so I'm missing it.
what do you, it's number 5.
Number 5. There it is. Thank you. Okay.
Any questions on this? Comments? Okay, seeing none, I would ask for a vote for the consent agenda.
Motion.
Motion, second? Second? Oh, you're second.
Second, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. We have new business. Oh, I'm sorry, personnel. Can we do a consent agenda on that as well? Okay? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll start with the appointing the coach.
Former student here, wants to come back and volunteer, has all the certifications, and would like to have a great kid.
Any questions? Okay, extend substitute.
One of our teachers is coming back after the break. And what we're finding is we are still consistently hitting double digits with substitutes, with evaluations, yearly evaluations that we're doing. We're still getting kickback from people who will have surgeries coming up, another teacher who's looking at surgery. We also have some secretaries in their sick, their what's it called, their vacation time. Here's a situation, like, we're going to use the subs. This is the last person. So, this gives us another sub that we have.
How many locked in?
Right now, we have our 2 that are here, and then this will be a 3rd again. So this would essentially be about 30 more days. But here's the thing, we're gonna spend it anyway, right? We're gonna have a sub almost every day. So this just makes sure we have a sub here.
Is there a pay difference for the long-term sub versus the
regular sub? No. And right now, this person already has 2 positions locked up for a total of 19 days already. So, keep the person the rest of the time. Plus, they have the kids, they have the system, they've been here. So, last week we averaged 11 subs per day. Like I said, if you're going to spend it anyway, just remember here we have. If you don't have a sub, then you pay coverage, which is $30 per class. So if the teacher covers 7 periods, you're actually paying more. 5 periods, that would also be 5. You'd be paying more money out with the coverage than you would with the sub. I was hoping that would go down, but it's not. Got more people going out. I just say, juggling act that we're doing every morning, looking at all the substitutes and the challenge. Now we can lock somebody else, that's great. And then I also have a former teacher who taught my last district, moved into the area, and she's subbing almost every day. Which is kind of nice, you don't have to lock her in, but she says she'll only be here. So essentially we have 4 or 5 subs kind of locked in. I can just tell you the lead request is very much that too. He is having a baby. Congratulations. You should be taking the last part.
Okay, any questions? Okay, a motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, new business, HFMOC's annual meeting.
Yeah, this is the annual meeting for BOCES budget information. It will be via WebEx, so if you would like to WebEx it, I can forward it to you when I receive it in the next week or so.
Okay, and, when will the voting take place?
That's the special call meeting we have scheduled at the end of April.
Special what?
That's the special call meeting we have at the end of April, that we're gonna do at 7:30 in the morning.
The BOCES election?
Yeah, what I said. This one.
It's April 28th.
I thought that's all really sensible, he's the president of the Fulton board, that wants to be on the BOCES board too. Okay, whatever. Okay, so, we'll get a notice about, I guess we can figure out the date of the first meeting in April. The BOCES election,
We have,
the 28th?
it's got 7:30 WebEx.
No, I mean for the election, is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
The annual meeting will be early April, so I'll email it to you as soon as I can.
All right, so, is there anything for exec?
Yes.
All right, so thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your presentation. Very helpful. A motion for the school to cover the cost of the bus transportation for the prom.
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Good job. Andrea set up this with
Really nice. Yeah. And really, the team tonight, the presentation was really great to see that.